Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to let everybody get logged in and we'll get started in just a minute. Let everybody get connected. All right. Looks like I think we have most everyone in. So let's go ahead and get started. We are straight up top of the hour. Welcome, everyone. We are excited to be bringing you a peer data webinar series. We have with us today Melody Veith, who is the Director of Research and Data at Central Missouri Community. I am Terry Bearden. I'm the project director for organizational capacity building here at the National Community Action Partnership. And so we're having this webinar series as a way to connect with those in our network who are primarily responsible for the data in their agencies. We know that there are a lot of you who do a lot of important work. And so we want to make sure that we offer opportunities for you to come together, hear from your peers, and really learn how to best manage the data in your agency. So Melody's going to be talking about centering customer voice in your agency's data practices today, something she's a pro at. And so I just want to start us off with the community action promise. The promise of community action is community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. And with that, I will ask you, unless you have a question or a comment, to keep yourselves on mute. I will mention that we will be sharing a recording and the slides from this session. And with that, I will turn it over to Melody. Thank you, Melody.
Thank you, Terry. My name is Melody Veith, and as she said, I'm the Director of Research and Data for Central Missouri Community Action. We cover at least 11 counties, 8 core counties in Central Missouri. And I've just been asked to talk with you a little bit about centering customer voice in our agency's data practices. So there'll be some times throughout that I'll ask you to unmute and share as you're comfortable, or you can type in the chat if that makes you feel more comfortable. And then we'll also do a group activity so that you'll leave with a hands-on resource that you can take back to your agency to help you move forward in your journey towards including customer voice and centering customer voice. So we're here today to talk about centering customer voice in our data practices, meaning throughout the processes of collecting, analyzing, and using our data for planning and decision-making. And we know that it's important to include customer voice, but let's take a minute to refresh ourselves on why it's so important. So is there anyone who'd like to unmute themselves and share, or drop some ideas on chat of why is it important to include our customer's voice? Feel free to unmute or drop your thoughts in chat. If customers can tell you what they need, maximum feasible participation coming through in the chat. Other thoughts? Programs are for our customers. Without them, there's no point. Exactly. Like, we are supposed to be meeting the needs of our customers and designing our services in a way that meets their needs. So we really need them to tell us about what works for them. Customers have lived expertise in the issues and solutions we're trying to address, not assuming we know what they need. Improving quality of services. People are the experts on their own lives and experiences. I love, Barbara, that you used the word experts. We're going to come back to that word several times today. Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. So you've named several of these already. If you have more thoughts, please feel free to keep adding them in chat. So you've named several of these already, but some of the key reasons that we want to include customer voice in our data processes are to improve our understanding of our customers' experiences and the ways in which our program is impacting them, or maybe not impacting them in the way that we would like. We also want to make sure that we are culturally respectful in the way that we are providing services and approaching customers' needs and including customer strengths. We want to enhance the validity of our data interpretation and application. So sometimes when we get data, we think we know what it means, or we think we know what the data is telling us to do. And we really, really need our customers to help us understand that, to make sure that we're interpreting that information accurately. And then we can also use our customer voice to strengthen their knowledge and their capacity for engagement and for self-advocacy. Sometimes programs hesitate to include customer voice throughout their data processes because they're concerned that the level of detail or the level of analysis might be too challenging for like an everyday member of the public to understand. And so it's our job to help build those skills and capacities within our customers so that they can self-advocate. So it's important that we take the time to thoughtfully and intentionally plan our approach to engaging customers in our data practices. So first, we want to consider our purpose. So what is it that we hope to achieve or address based on the information we receive from our customers? Which customer voices do we need in order to do this? We also want to consider at what points in the process do we want or need customer voice. So are we thinking that we want customer input at designated points along the way to clarify or enhance our understanding? Or do we intend that customers will be heavily involved in each part of the process from design to implementation? We also want to evaluate our agency's capacity to engage our customers. So the capacity for a one-time survey for an individual program is going to be a lot different than the capacity for a year-long data collection process with surveys and focus groups and listening sessions and all those other activities. So we have to think about our agency's capacity to engage. And finally, what supports do our customers need in order to engage? So we might have to go back and do some of that trust building and that relationship building to help our customers feel comfortable engaging with us. Or maybe they are engaged, but we need to provide some accessible context to allow them to engage more deeply with us. So providing accessible context can look like breaking down federal regulations into everyday language, or maybe it's framing the conversation by describing the purpose and scope of the activities. And we'll talk more about providing accessible context in a few minutes. So more deeply engaging our customers or our families, it always goes back to relationships, doesn't it? So we want to make sure that we are building those trusting relationships with our families so that they are open to engaging with us. So we want to practice open communication. We want to be clear about what information we're seeking or how their input will be used. We want to communicate the goal that we're trying to achieve and what their role is in helping achieve that goal, and who will ultimately make the decisions. We want to be honest about what we can and can't accomplish, including limitations like funding regulations or local laws or budgetary considerations that may not be in their immediate frame of reference. We want to be open to negative feedback and approach families with respect and a desire to understand their experience from their perspective. We also want to make sure that open communication goes both ways. We also want to acknowledge past experiences that families may have had with our agency or with other agencies. And we want to recognize that some families may have been asked to share their stories over and over, or to provide feedback many times without seeing anything change as a result, maybe even within our own agencies. So research actually tells us that families who have been minoritized may frequently be asked to bear the burden of sharing their experience and yet see nothing change as a result, or they might be used to their input being asked in a more performative way. So we want to acknowledge those previous experiences and intentionally plan each step of our data process through an equity lens so that families feel comfortable engaging, they feel heard, and they see the direct results of their shared experience. This goes hand in hand with developing cultural competence. Understand and respect and reflecting the cultures of the families that we serve. So this includes everything from using person-first language to ensuring the questions that we ask are culturally sensitive, to deciding what data is collected, how it's collected and interpreted, and how and with whom that data is shared. Somebody in our chat earlier mentioned families being experts on their lived experiences. They absolutely are. So I like to call them context experts. So just like we bring content experts to the table, so that whether that's a consultant or our own staff, we're the content experts, our families are the context experts. So they provide that lived experience and that rich context to bring to the table. So we want to compensate them accordingly for their time and their knowledge, just as you would your own staff or a content expert. So for the rest of our time together, we're going to talk about ways that you can more deeply engage families as context experts throughout the processes of data collection, data usage, and analytics. So let's talk for just a minute about the difference between including customer voice and centering customer voice. Would anybody feel comfortable either unmuting or dropping in the chat the difference between those two things, including voice and centering customer voice? Give me just a second to be able to type out your thoughts. What's the difference between including customer voice and centering customer voice? There are no wrong ideas here. It's okay to share. So we've got including, it's there in your qualitative data. Including means adding it to the narrative. Centering means making it the focus of the narrative. I like that. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, so in my mind, at least, it's really about establishing who has the power in the relationship. So including customer voice means that we, the Community Action Agency, seeks input from them, the customers. So whenever there's an us and a them, there's an unequal balance of power. So it might be unintentional, but it is there. So when we, the Community Action Agency, decide whose input to use and when and how we will use that input as we make decisions, we're sending the message that we have the power in the relationship and we're the primary actors and decision makers. We control the narrative. Centering customer voice means that the we encompasses all of us, community action staff, and our customers, or those that we serve. It means that together we have shared power and shared control and shared responsibility. It means that both our content experts, our staff, and our context experts, our customers, our families, can co-create change together. So I want you to pause for a second and let that sink in. Shared power, shared control, and shared responsibility over that narrative. So how can we operationalize this? How can we make this theory work in the real world? How can we apply this idea to our data efforts? So by centering customer voice, it means our customers and our staff work together to collect and analyze and use data for planning and for decision-making. So I'd love to share this with you. This is the family engagement continuum. This version is developed by Mathematica. It was adapted from the IAP2 Spectrum of Public Participation. So this is got a slide with some resources on it. You can find a lot more information about this continuum in those resources, but I wanted to kind of give you an overview. So family engagement with an organization exists on a continuum. So that said, there's no right or wrong place to be on this continuum. We just start where we are. So just like in family coaching, we meet our customers where they are with their coaching. We engage our customers in the way that meets their current capabilities and our current understanding of engagement work. We meet them where they are, and we meet them where we are. At the same time, we're also helping both our staff and our customers strengthen their skills and prepare for deeper levels of engagement in the future. So I wanted to spend just a few minutes looking at each of these levels of engagement. So the first one is inform, and that's when the program informs family about program and policy changes, how changes might affect them, and where families can find resources describing the changes. So the program's promise is to keep families informed about changes. A little bit deeper level of engagement is consulting. So we consult families when we systematically gather family feedback about a topic and share that feedback with program staff and sometimes the public. So in consulting, programs promise to consider family input and share how that input influenced program changes. Then we go a little bit deeper with involve. Involve families by providing multiple opportunities for two-way communication. Programs decide what to change, but they offer families ways to share thoughts, ideas, and feedback about the proposed changes. So we've gone from just telling them about a change to actually getting feedback on what that change might be. In involving, programs promise that families will have access to the decision process and decision makers. They'll have the opportunity to give input throughout the process and will know how their input helped influence program changes. A little deeper engagement than that is collaboration. So we collaborate when families share their feedback about the program and the program's proposed solutions. Families and program staff then collaborate together to create solutions or improvement strategies based on that feedback. So with collaboration, programs promise to engage families in all improvement activities and decisions, and will aim to incorporate the solutions and strategies that families propose. So now that balance of power is starting to shift to be distributed a little more equally. And then finally, we have empowering. Programs empower families by giving families the autonomy to make final decisions about changes to the program's policies, services, service delivery, or processes. And programs promise to implement what the families decide. So this is fully shifting that power into the hands of the families or the customers that we serve. So as I mentioned, there's no right or wrong place to be on that continuum, but there are different levels and different ways that we can incorporate or center family voice, particularly on those lower three levels. It's also a process. So as we continue to work through our levels of engagement with families, we're equipping our families to be able to be engaged more deeply, and we're equipping our staff to be able to provide those supports for families. So here's the question of the day. How can we move down that continuum? How can we more deeply engage our customers in our data efforts? So if you came here today hoping to learn about new and groundbreaking data collection methods, like this method will dramatically increase your level of customer engagement and center that customer voice, then I am sorry. I have very few new and exciting data collection formats to share with you. But time permitting, we will have some new data analysis structures that we can share. What I do hope you take away from today is this continuum and this thought. It's not what we do, but how we do it. So it's not what method you're using to collect and interpret your data, but how you're doing it. So for the next few minutes of our time together, we're going to co-create a resource that you can take back to your programs that will be filled with strategies for how your programs can more deeply engage your customers and center that customer voice throughout your data work. So in just a minute, I'm going to drop a link into the chat. And we're actually going to model this idea of co-creation and engagement and deeper engagement with you as we think about centering customer voice through data collection. So in this activity, I'll act as the content expert and facilitate discussions. And you all will be the context experts. You're going to bring to the table what you already know and do related to data collection. And so together, content and context experts, we're going to create this amazing resource that we can all share to guide our data efforts moving forward. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat. So if you are able to click on that link, it is a Google Doc. You should all be able to have access to it. And I will change my screen here in just a second and also pull that up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you into breakout groups, and I'm going to assign each group one section of this document. So I'm going to go ahead and change my screen. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Terry, can you just confirm for me in chat if you are able to see the spreadsheet? Okay, Terry can see it. Awesome. Someone asked, can you add the link to the chat instead of just the picture? It does look like it did both for some reason, so that's interesting. But I will try one more time to send that link. There we go. And I'm seeing lots of little icons pop on as folks are clicking that link. Fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. If you are in, and the number of the breakout room should be at the top of your breakout. If you're in breakout group 1, I want you to do this purple section that says breakout room 1 right here. If you're in breakout group 2, I want you to look at the yellow section. If you're in breakout room 3, I'd like you to look at the pinkish purplish section. And breakout room 4, you'll be working on the green section. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do in your breakout groups. You will have about 10 minutes to work together, which is not long, but at least you'll get a start. And I'd like you to fill in as many of these cells in the spreadsheet in your section as you can. So for example, if I'm thinking about informing families and I'm working in the survey group, then I'm going to think, how would I inform families about the survey content or the questions? And there's some tips there of things I could think about. How would I inform families about the survey designer format, or would I inform them? And how would I inform families about the survey distribution? And so I'll put my ideas in each of these cells as I work my way down the continuum, so that at the end, you'll have a resource, for example, explaining ideas on how you might collaborate with families on survey content versus inform families on survey content. So breakout group 1, you'll do the purple section. It'll show you right here on the second row which section you're on. Breakout room 2, you're yellow. Breakout room 3, you are pink. And breakout room 4, you are green. If there are any questions about what I'm asking you to do, this is a great time to ask. Otherwise, I will join your breakout rooms individually and see if you need help. Yes, I see a hand up.
Hi, Melody. When I click on the chat, I'm not getting anything. It's blank.
Your chat is blank. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to see the link in the chat and it just doesn't take you anywhere?
I don't see anything. When I click on it, just a blank screen. There's nothing there. I see there's like 4, the number 4, but when I click on it, nothing pops up.
Okay, I'm going to try to send it to you directly.
Okay, thank you.
Let me know if you can see that.
Send it in the chat.
Yes, there should be a Zoom meeting chat.
I'm on that, but when I click on it, there's nothing. It's just a blank. I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, if you don't mind hanging in here with me in the main room for just a second, I'll try and help you get there. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and open the breakout rooms. You should automatically be assigned to a breakout room, and you should be able to click the word join, and it will take you there. And we'll spend 10 minutes, so I'll bring you back here at 1:35 my time, but I'll bring you back in 10 minutes. And Rhoda, if you would just hang on one second, I'll try and get you connected. Welcome back, everyone. Seeing all the faces pop up on my screen again. Welcome, welcome. All right, it looks like most people made it back to our main room. How was that? How was that thought process of thinking through how we can share that power of decision making with families at each of the different levels? What did that feel like for you? Oh, I think I spoke too soon. Now my screen is really, really full of faces. So welcome back, everyone, if you weren't here just a moment ago. What did that activity feel like? The process of thinking through those different levels of engagement and sharing that decision-making power with families, intentionally planning for that or talking about things you already did. What was that activity experience like for you?
I would say that it was helpful. I think it was Allison in my group. She was sharing how her agency has done it in the past, and I'm relatively new, so it was helpful to get some ideas as to maybe how we could replicate some of the efforts that they had done.
Awesome. Would anyone else like to share or drop in chat? Oops, excuse me. Did not mean to take that off the screen yet. Would anyone else like to share or drop in chat how that experience felt for them? All right. Well, thank you all for spending so much time and focus on that. If you would like to save this, you all have access and will continue to have access for a few days after this webinar. But you can also go to the file button and then download, and you can download it as an Excel or a PDF, whatever works best for you. I would recommend, if you found this helpful, that you take it back to your agency and you think through each of these levels within your own agency. You can change it if your agency doesn't do surveys. You can make it whatever your agency does use, and really think about how we can deepen those levels of engagement so that we're sharing that power and that decision making with families. So I wanted to just highlight real quickly a few of the ideas that were shared, knowing that you'll have full access to this resource and can go back to it when you need. And you can continue adding your own ideas. Obviously, we only had like 10 or 12 minutes. We didn't get quite finished with everything, and that's okay. You can bring it back for more discussion. So if you use surveys, I'll start with that one, since that's a fairly common method. Oh, I'm so sorry. My screen is not shared. Thank you, Terry. There we go. Sorry about that. So once again, if you would like to save this, you can go to File, Download, and then you can save it as an Excel or a PDF, whatever works for you. So if you are a program that uses surveys, you might inform families just by telling families, we're going to have a survey. This is how it will be used, and here's how you can access it. Going down to consulting, This group thought about paying attention to the way that clients answer questions to see if questions need to be clarified or decreasing the number of questions asked. Open-ended comments is a way to provide that family feedback. And then asking how they would like to receive future surveys. So you're consulting, you're gathering information from the families. So other ways that you might even deepen that level of engagement with surveys are maybe families are proposing questions that they think would help inform your services. Are you reviewing those questions with a smaller group of families to make sure that you're being culturally sensitive in the way that information is being asked or collected? If you are asking families to make decisions about even the question types or question formats. So for example, our agency used to, just write a little sentence and then they would have like a multiple choice answer or an open-ended question box. We didn't get a whole lot of response with that. And families told us that it was just too long, it was too lengthy to read. So we actually switched to emojis where you can just select the smiley face, the saddie face, the straight liney face, and we got a better response rate. And we did that because of collaborating with families, even as to the format of the question type. So there's a lot of different little decisions that need to be made during that process that families can absolutely make those decisions for you or with you. And so thinking about each of those different levels as you work through your data collection processes, whether that be surveys or focus groups, interviews or public forums or hearings or whatever other methods that you use. So again, going back to our slides for just a moment, and hopefully my screen changed along with it. It's not what we do, but how we do it. So hopefully you're able to take that back to your agency and think through your methods of data collection and how you might deepen those levels of engagement. So I wanted to spend the last few minutes talking about what do you do once you've got all of that data collected? How can you involve and center customer voice through data interpretation and analysis? So sometimes agencies are hesitant to include customers in this step. Because they worry that customers don't have the skills to understand the data that is shared with them. And that's just part of capacity building. So we, as the agency, can provide that accessible context to our customers by presenting the data in ways that match and grow their current skill set. So for example, we can use our content expertise along with an equity lens to decide which data most meaningfully represents the scope of the issue. So we don't have to present every single possible data point that we collect, but we do need to decide when and how to share which data points, when and how to disaggregate the data to highlight disparities between different groups of people. The point is to better understand the issue and help people understand what it is that the data is telling us, what story the data is trying to tell, not necessarily to overwhelm them with every possible data point that we collected. We can make data more accessible by using simple and clear data visualizations. There are a number of chart chooser tools online to help you choose the correct type of visualization for your purpose. And so I've included some of those chart choosers in the resource slide. When we're introducing the data to our members or to our customers, we can explain how to read basic visualizations. Usually just giving them an example or two of how to read a particular chart gives them that skill so that they can then prepare or read charts on their own. We can intentionally use headings that get to the point. We want to make sure that the story is clear in any type of data or graph that we present. So if you think about a graph titled third grade reading scores in Howard County from 2015 to 2022, that doesn't really tell a story. But if I label that same chart as Black children are 3 times as likely as white children to struggle with reading in third grade, that tells that point a lot more succinctly than trying to hunt through the data. And that would let people know who are reading that graph, this is an issue that we need to focus on. When we're presenting our data, another tip is to use color intentionally, such as consistently indicating a demographic group or to highlight areas of strength or concern. So as we're presenting that data, we're selecting and choosing the way in which that data is shared so that we can build the skills and capacity of those that we rely on to help us interpret that data. So the biggest piece that our customers can do to help us as an agency improve is to share that lived experience, to share that context in which this data exists. So we want to make sure that any opportunity that we have to analyze data or to talk about data involves our content experts and our context experts, our customers, so that we have both the numbers and how those numbers look in real life for our families that we serve, so that we can interpret that data together and plan together. All right, so how can we make sure those opportunities happen? So providing that data in an accessible way is our role as the content experts. But we also need to provide those structures that encourage engagement and that support our customers in their role as context experts as we seek to better understand what our data is telling us. So one example of an engagement structure is called data parties. They're just as fun as they sound. We have data parties quarterly at my agency. So they're typically going to be 2 to 3 hour meetings in which a facilitator guides stakeholders through interpreting and drawing meaning from data. So the facilitator explains the process and leads a discussion of the selected data points, asking questions that prompt open discussion. So what does this data tell you? Does the data reflect your own experience? What are some possible reasons why the data looks as good as it does or that it looks as bad as it does? So those kinds of questions can naturally lead to the next step of data-based planning. So data parties can be as fun as engaging as you want them to be. So in our agency, we have food, we have balloons and colored tablecloths. Everybody gets a little party horn, and when we find data that shows something good has happened, we toot our little party horns to celebrate. So they can be as fun and engaging as you want them to be. But the purpose is that you're there together to create meaning from the numbers and from the lived experiences that you see in here. So during the data parties, facilitators can use structures like data placemats or data walks to guide the conversation. We could do a whole other session just on data walks themselves, but very briefly, I'll show you an example of each. So this is an example of a data placemat. It's basically a collection of data points on a single topic on one piece of paper. So you can add little icons or numbers to help focus participants' attention so that they're all looking at and discussing the same information at the same time. And I apologize, I know the screenshot is a little blurry here. So if I was doing this, I would add little numbers so that I could say, we're going to start by looking at number 1 and asking some facilitated questions and having some open discussion about the data shown in number 1. Then we move to number 2. And so those numbers just kind of help us all keep on track and help narrow our focus to specific talking points. There's usually also a place for participants to write or draw their interpretations of the data. And then we do collect those data placemats at the end of the session. So you have those written or drawn interpretations to work with. So we also typically record the conversations and take notes, but then we also have the written and drawn information. So that's a data placemat. You can use those during a data party. There's the part where you write. And this is an example of a data walk. So these pictures are actually our real actual community members, a couple staff and a board member in these particular pictures. So this was part of our community needs assessment. So we brought data about the county. We serve 8 core counties. So we brought data about the counties to the counties. And each poster had specific data points related to housing, employment, health, etc. And that data was about that county. And after some brief instructions, community members and our partners moved around the room to read the posters and have spontaneous discussions at their own pace. They also had sticky notes that they could add to the posters with questions or examples from their experience. They got a printed facilitation guide that had some simple questions to prompt them to reflect on what they were seeing and some space to take notes. So in the bottom picture, the bottom left picture, a community member who was really active with housing in the community. You can see him kind of facing everybody else there. He was on standby because he felt very passionate about that issue. And so he wanted to help answer any questions about housing related data. And he did get several questions asked. So he was able to share his lived experience and his professional experience directly with our community partners. So after the data walk, the facilitator moved into a group discussion of the data, and then we moved right into that planning process. Our agency also made those data posters available on our website, and we did have many partners download them and then use those posters for their own planning experiences. We've also used the data walk format internally as part of our agency self-assessment process. So our next step is to actually do this with our members, sharing our agency level data with our members and asking for their input on how we might continue to improve our services. So you might find, hopefully you will find, that by engaging customers more deeply and centering their voice in that data collection and data analysis and interpretation processes, now they're really heavily invested in finding solutions and making quality improvements. In fact, sometimes when people start looking at data, our own staff included, we like to jump straight to finding solutions. However, it's best if we pause and take the time to talk about the why behind the data before we jump in with strategies. So this is another time when our customer voice is critically needed. So taking time to talk about the why along with our customers can help us identify root causes, can help us identify barriers or other issues we may not have fully understood or even realized were there. It can also help us uncover resources that we didn't know exist. So in order for our strategy planning stage, or what are we going to do about this data stage to be successful, we need to take the time to fully explore those root causes. Why does the data look the way that it does? And select strategies that directly or indirectly address those root causes. So it takes some skillful facilitation to navigate those deeper conversations. And this is where having our members feel comfortable and engaged in building those trusting relationships is going to be so key. Sharing those lived experiences can be very emotional for some participants because that's their lives that they're talking about and that they're disclosing publicly. You might have other participants whose experience or whose interpretation of the data differs, and it takes skill as a facilitator to help both of those parties understand both of their interpretations and experiences are valid and they both bring meaning to the work. And it also takes skill to harness and direct the energy in the room into meaningful action. So there's several different approaches to data-driven planning to help transition that period of looking at the data, interpreting it, understanding those root causes, and then moving into the planning stage. So again, remember, it's not what we do, it's how we do it. So if you're already using a data-driven planning method, you can keep using that. There are just likely ways that you can center customer voice in the planning process that you already use. So most collective impact models include strategies for engaging community partners that can also be applied to engaging our families or our customers. You can also formalize more permanent structures for centering customer voice. So customer advisory boards or committees or councils, or expanding the roles of existing advisory groups. We can also continue to help our customers develop their capacity for database planning through programs and services that we offer. Many of us offer programs such as Step Up to Leadership, Bridges Out of Poverty, Neighborhood Leadership Academies, or other leadership development programs can support our customers as they engage in planning efforts, both within our organization and in the larger community. So I'll just close with sharing with you, and I know you can't read all that right now, but there are several different resources that you'll have access to. I believe Terry said the slides will be provided so that you will have those with you. If I'm going to drop my email in the chat. If you have any questions or want to get a hold of me later to follow up on any of these topics, you can reach me at data@cmca.us. So thank you so much for your time, and I will turn it back over to Terry.
Thank you, Melody. I did want to bring to your attention one question from Mara in the chat. Do you have a data walk template? Do you guys have anything put together that you might be able to share?
Yeah, so I do have like the template for the handout that folks used as they walked from poster to poster. So I'll be glad to share that with anybody. So Terry, is the best way for them to contact you, or do you want them to contact me directly? How do you want to do that?
It's 6 of one or half dozen of the other, except if you wouldn't mind, when we post this recording and the slides, it might be nice to have that as just another resource. So if you want to send it to me, and then if you guys want to connect with Melody, I'll go ahead and encourage you to do that individually as well. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so we're almost at the end of our time together today. I want to encourage you, please complete the evaluation. I put the link in the chat. There's also a QR code and a link on your screen. So if you wait until you get a copy of the slides, you can click on it then. As always, oh, look, a data party in January, yay. As always, the recording of this webinar and a copy of the slides will be posted at the NCAP Resource Library in the next couple of days. So anytime there's a webinar like this that's hosted by NCAP, we put the recording and the slides up for access. And next slide, please. Okay, so Melody broke the ice and got us started with our first peer data webinar. This is a series of 3. So on November 6th is navigating the landscape of technology and data systems. There's a QR code here where you can get registration info for both of those other sessions. And in December, we'll come back together for a web of management systems. What if your spreadsheet talk to each other? And hopefully your spreadsheets, when they talk to each other, they're not talking about you. But anyway, that's a different webinar for a different day. And last, a couple of commercials, as I usually call them. We are having a CSBG Organizational Standards Skill Builder training in person in Nashville on November 14th and 15th. So if you would like to join us there is another QR code for you to snag from your screen real quickly. And hopefully you've done that. If not, again, you can get it from the slides. And last slide is if there are any executive directors on the webinar who have been in your position for fewer than 5 years, we're having a couple of sessions for new executive directors, one in Alexandria, Virginia later this month, and one in San Diego in December, because what better place to be in December than San Diego? So again, I'm a fan of QR codes. There's a QR code available on your screen right now to get more information for that. And so if you're not a new executive director, but you have a new ED at your agency, you might want to share this information with them. And with that, straight up 2 o'clock, I will thank Melody once again. She's one of my data heroes out in the network. And when you complete the evaluation, which I hope you all do, I'm asking if there are other data-oriented topics that we might be able to provide webinars on. So please let us know. We try to be responsive to the needs of the network, and we will certainly try to pull some experts together to cover any additional topics that you might want to hear about us from. And with that, I will thank you very much for your time and attention, and we will look forward to seeing you at the future webinars. I'm seeing some ideas come in So yes, please, thank you. Continue sharing and we will see you soon. Thank you.